Given the arduous nature of the journey of the Magi, and such a long journey, the ways deep and the weather sharp, there's something strangely touching about the no-nonsense, almost perfunctory way in which they depart. That gorgeous scene, at once homely and glorious, that has so transfixed and changed them, is lovingly ceded for the hard journey home. And having been warned in a dream not to return to Herod, they left for their own country by another road. These men had famously traversed afar, having looked so long at the skies and found him who had raised them. They had knelt, overwhelmed with joy, before the very principle of creation, and bestowed upon him their lavish gifts. Yet unlike St. Peter, at that later moment of manifestation some 30 years later, the transfiguration on Mount Tabor, Lord, it is good for us to be here. Let us make 3 tabernacles. Unlike St. Peter, the 3 wise men are ready at this very moment of cosmic consummation, quietly, politely to depart. Lord, now lettest thou thy servant depart in peace. Familiar words. Indeed, forbearance, sacrifice, the willingness to give way and to let go, to be done unto according to thy word, is a hallmark of the unfolding of our salvation from Abraham's abortive sacrifice of Isaac, through John the Baptist and Simeon, to Joseph and Mary, the Blessed Mother of God. It's present too in the history of the saints of the Church. Those with most faith in God's purposes are called on a costly journey, undergone willingly in faith, only to be reimbursed more abundantly than they could have known. True joy is understood to come at a cost. To know peace brings with it a costly commission. To lend one's heart and purpose to God is to take it for granted that the rough will come with the smooth, that even amidst the certainty of salvation made manifest, a sword may pierce our own souls too. The measure and forbearance of the Magi is just one point of contrast between their worldviews and that displayed by the unfortunate Herod. The imagery of light in great darkness that pervades today's liturgies is not merely literal. We see it figuratively at work in this morning's striking gospel contrast between the attitudes and behaviors of Herod and of the Magi. The Magi's perseverance, their wisdom, their faith and generosity, that almost guileless naivety in showing up in Jerusalem, assuming that Jerusalem too will be looking for the King of the Jews. All this is at odds with the conduct and demeanor of Herod, where the kings of the East pour themselves and their gifts upon the Christ child. King Herod stands on ceremony, is lordly and cruel in his orders. He's described as frightened, dealing secretly and duplicitously. He is jealous and grasping, with no room in his heart for a higher authority, a subtler wisdom, or a holier sense of beauty. The 3 companion kings, in contrast, come together without envy or competition, trusting in the inexhaustible grace of God, even though they are still discovering and ready to discover its upending, ongoing implications. Their gifts don't strain against each other, but perfectly complement one another. The despot compares himself to others, the old human stain of competition, the zero-sum game, dog eat dog. There's no forbearance with Herod. His suspicion, his inner torment drive him to send out his men to exact a terrible punishment on the most vulnerable, the most innocent of his own realm. the direct opposite of a college of three kings who would themselves pass moor and mountain in sincere and loving search for the truth. The direct opposite, moreover, of a triune God who would come to earth, of the earth, as the earth's most vulnerable, most innocent, and as the earth's redeemer. We could end the homily there, be like the wise men and not like Herod. But the gospel offers us more than a mere caricature. We know, or perhaps most of us know, if we're honest with ourselves, that there are bits of Herod as well as bits of Magi in us all. Light and dark persist, even, perhaps especially, in the glow of the dust tail of the Incarnation. The star is still to be followed in faith, with joy and with drudgery. We might even notice that some of our Magian gifts come with an essentially Herodian dark side. Confidence, for example, so necessary and important in so many situations, might come at the cost of listening at times. We all know how difficult the great artists can be. Our generosity can come at the cost of the ability to say no reasonably, as we must do at times. Our weaknesses in certain areas make necessary room for strengths in others. Our insecurities, our sense of littleness, can be the source of resentment and anger. And inevitably, talents, virtues, and opportunities are unevenly distributed amongst us. What this observation is not is to call for an abandonment of hope or determination to work on those parts of ourselves that need it. We're called with God's grace to do that. But this isn't like the all-or-nothing beach body and Spanish-speaking ready for summer sort of process inaugurated by January in the secular world. Part of what the wise men teach us is the importance of the journey as well as the end. They take it for granted that this moment of bliss is bound up with a continuing call. There is more to do in the light of the Incarnation, people with whom the light of Christ must be shared and can only be shared by us. Promise comes with a difficult commission, but it also lends joy and meaning to the road itself. And it comes with a call not to compare ourselves with others, as modern life makes it so painfully easy to do. Intimately connected to the wonderful attitude of the wise men's preparedness to move on is their quiet and unassuming confidence that their gifts are worthy ones, that they are guests worthy to be here, that they have a place, a small place perhaps, a moment in time, but a place nonetheless. They trust that whatever they have to bring is valuable in its own small, partial way. This strikes us rather differently to the entitled approach of Herod, might masking fear and insecurity, rather a trust in God's love despite our own inadequacy. There is more work to do, no doubt, but each of us comes today to this Mass with something to give. Let us cultivate in ourselves that quiet confidence, even as we are aware of our own failings. The Roman canon articulates in the following words something central to every Mass that we celebrate together. We, your servants and your holy people, offer to your glorious majesty from the gifts that you have given us. The wise men's secret was to know for all their wisdom, their earthly wisdom, that they weren't in a sense wise at all, outside of their discernment that God was the ground of their being, that everything they had was his, and that to give generously back to him, however painful, difficult, and strange it might be, was the way to reconciliation with the God who made them, and the way to real abundance of life. We gather this morning to worship the Lord in the beauty of holiness, to offer to him and through him the one true and sufficient sacrifice he chose to be the means of reconciling us to himself. However aware we might be of our failings, our limitedness, however much work there is yet to do, let us trust that he will accept with great joy the poor wealth we would reckon as ours, if we offer it freely at his altar this morning. Freed then by this morning's gorgeous encounter with the Lord, freed, inspired, steeled, and made ready for the cold rain outside and our journey ahead. Amen.